We all know the number one pick in the 2024 NFL Draft was Caleb Williams. We all expect the best rookie quarterback this year to be Caleb Williams. But what if he isn't? Last year, Bryce Young was a massive disappointment. The number one pick doesn't always equal the best player in reality or fantasy. Last year, it was CJ Stroud who was the best rookie QB. So, who could be this year's CJ Stroud? So, if it's not Caleb Williams who shines the brightest this year, who could it be? Well, what about number 2 pick, Jaden Daniels of Washington? Chris, what are some of the reasons that it could be him?
Well, I think the most obvious reason is his rushing upside. This is a guy who has the ability to run for 5, 6, 700 plus yards in the NFL, score, 8 plus rushing touchdowns. Not to mention Washington, he's got weapons around him. And Terry McLaurin is there. Jahan Dotson is still there. We got new offensive coordinator. We got new coaches, new staff here. So this is a good situation for Jaden Daniels. So certainly I think in fantasy especially, he has the kind of upside we're looking for to potentially be the top scoring rookie quarterback.
I hear all that, and I'll tell you, he's definitely going to be one of the favorites to be the top rookie QB behind Caleb Williams, maybe even in front of Caleb Williams. Now, there are, of course, some concerns, some reasons why it might not happen. Number one is, well, what you just mentioned. Brand new coach, brand new offensive coordinators, new system in place. There's going to be a learning curve here for everybody. Of course, that happens with all rookies. It didn't take long for CJ Stroud, but still, we can't just assume everything is going to move smoothly and seamlessly like it did in Houston, right? That's kind of the exception, not the rule. But here's the other thing with Daniels specifically. Now, I hope this doesn't happen, but what if he has the type of season Anthony Richardson did in Indianapolis? And by that I mean he misses most of it because he's hurt. And this is a very real risk. We've seen the highlights of him running, and he's very athletic, but he needs to learn how to slide. The guy took some brutal hits, and it takes a while for players to really learn how to do that. It took Justin Fields a while to learn. Jaden Daniels just plays a little bit too physical for a guy who's really not that big. And of course, the other thing is he took a lot of sacks. He made a ton of big plays, but he also got hit way too much behind the line of scrimmage. If he doesn't learn to do that, you can't make those big plays. The next QB off the board was Drake May for New England. Now, this is a guy who could have been in play as the number 2 pick. It came down to the wire. We didn't know if he was going to be number 2, number 3, number 4. Obviously, a lot of evaluators had him as one of the highest projected QBs, and he could wind up being the most productive guy in this class. Now, I know that New England's going to have a really young offense, but again, this is strikingly similar to Houston, where you have, again, a rookie head coach, even a defensive-minded coach like D'Amico Ryans in Houston. But you have a new sense of life here in this offense that has been stagnant for a while. Not just last year. It's not just Mac Jones. Partly Bill Belichick. Look, ever since their franchise QB Tom Brady left, it has not been the same. So this is going to be a franchise that's rejuvenated. Drake May had one of the best arms in this entire class, a very smart player, and was very productive throughout college. So this could be an instant impact type of maker. He's not someone who makes bad decisions, whether running or holding onto the ball too long, and that's something you definitely look for as a rookie.
Yeah, well, let me play devil's advocate here for a bit when you compare TJ Stroud's situation to Drake May's, because there are a lot of similarities, but I'll tell you the 2 big differences to me. Actually, the 3 big differences. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Dalton Schultz versus Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, and Hunter Henry. So, yeah, we could say going into last year, look, Nico Collins hadn't done anything in the NFL, and Tank Dell was a rookie. But I think we both knew the kind of upside those guys have. Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, I mean, they're fine. They don't quite excite me, and Hunter Henry is just okay. And I do worry that this is going to be an offense. Maybe it won't be as run-heavy as we're used to seeing, but it'll still be more to the run-heavy side than the pass-heavy side. I think Drake May is one of these guys also I feel like needs a year. CJ Stroud I felt like was ready. I don't feel like Drake May is quite ready yet. I think he will get there. I just don't know if it'll be this year.
Now, J.J. McCarthy going to Minnesota seems like a dream scenario for a quarterback. Is it as good as it sounds?
I think it might be. I think people are a little bit sleeping on J.J. McCarthy in fantasy because this is a fantastic landing spot. not only do you have the best wide receiver in football, and don't try to talk to me about anybody else being better than Justin Jefferson, but you also have Jordan Addison. It would have been nice if TJ Hawkinson was healthy, but maybe he'll get him healthy for the second half of the season. But for me, the most important thing here is he's got Kevin O'Connell. Not only is Kevin O'Connell a great offensive coach, not only is he a coach that wants to throw the football, he's a former quarterback. He is a great coach for a quarterback. This is the dream spot for J.J. McCarthy. And look, I think J.J. McCarthy is better than the numbers he put up in Michigan because they didn't ask him to do anything there. So honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if J.J. McCarthy is one of or the top scoring QB this year.
Well, I have to admit, going to Minnesota with those receivers is pretty much the best you can ask for in terms of potential production, yardage, completions, fantasy goodness. Well, here's the thing, though. I have to seriously ask, if Michigan doesn't win the championship game, which, let's admit also, is based on the strength of their defense first and foremost, and their running game, does J.J. McCarthy really enter the conversation as one of the top QBs in the draft? I'm not sure. So we haven't seen him really air it out that much. Sure, he didn't need to. He wasn't asked to. But what happens when he tries for the first time? What happens when Minnesota is losing by multiple scores? Is he really going to be able to step up and put up those big numbers? Now, I don't feel like he's going to be a turnover machine, but that doesn't necessarily mean he'll be a touchdown machine. So, yeah, I want to see it before I really believe it. And also, there's that element he doesn't really have that a guy like Jaden Daniels has, is running. So that's going to have to limit his upside to some extent. I know they'll pass a lot in Kevin O'Connell's offense, but without that rushing ability to really take him to the next level, can he be that type of quarterback who is a fantasy stud? We'll see. And the next QB taken, very interesting one. We'll see how Bo Nix projects at the next level. You probably could consider this a good thing, although it's up for debate. I'm sure, Chris, you'll debate this point. He's in a Sean Payton offense. All right, Sean Payton, we know he's supposed to be this QB guru, guy who just is an offensive mastermind. You know, we didn't quite see it in Denver yet, but it seems like that's Russell Wilson's fault. All right, so now he's got his guy. They had their eye on him this whole time. They knew they wanted Bo Nix, so Payton will be able to mold him into what he wants, fit him into that system. He's got his receiver from college, Troy Franklin. We've seen that seems to be the key to a lot of these QBs making a smooth transition. I mean, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Tua's got Jalen Waddle, right? Tank Dell, he didn't play with C.J. Stroud, but C.J. Stroud said, that's my guy, I want you to draft him. That worked out pretty well. So a quarterback having that receiver that he can go to and has that trust in already, that seems to be very helpful. And so Bo Nix is going to be the guy from day one also. There's no controversy here. He's definitely the starter because they got nothing else there. So if Nix can take to Peyton's system and produce some of the big prolific numbers he produced in college, there's definitely a shot.
I will say you make some good compelling arguments, and it is easy to draw the comparison to what C.J. Stroud had last year to what Bo Nix had this year. Bo Nix has that big outside receiver in Cortland Sutton, has the rookie, that flanker kind of guy, Troy Franklin, that he's very familiar with. I still have my concerns, and that's number one. I don't feel like Bo Nix is the most, talented quarterback in this class. Like, he doesn't have that crazy arm talent. Yeah, he's accurate, but he's going to need his wide receivers to do a lot of the work if he's going to have a big season. And again, I do have my doubts about how good is this Sean Payton offense really. When you have Drew Brees, your offense is going to look pretty good. When have we seen a great Sean Payton offense outside of that? We really haven't. So while I think Bo Nix may surprise people this year, CJ Stroud level, it seems like maybe a bit of a stretch.
Now, there were a couple of other quarterbacks taken. One, shockingly, at number 8 overall to Atlanta. Of course, that's Michael Penix Jr. And then a little bit later on, Spencer Rattler. Is there a chance either of these guys surprises even further and winds up being a breakout in their rookie season?
Only if there's an injury ahead of them. I can't imagine either of these guys winning the job outright, especially Michael Penix with Kirk Cousins there getting paid a gazillion dollars. So, sure, if Cousins gets hurt again or if Derek Carr gets hurt, then they have a path, but that's the only way.
Yeah, I just want to state again for anybody who really didn't follow the draft that closely or wasn't sure what happened, the Michael Penix pick by Atlanta was by far the most bizarre pick we've seen in years. It makes absolutely no sense in any way. There's no way to explain or justify it. If Kirk Cousins, for some reason, just isn't ready to start the season, okay, maybe then it looks a little smarter, but he's still going to play when he's ready. So, yeah, it's just bizarre. There's no way, like you said, without a serious injury. And even so, are we sure that these guys are ready to just all of a sudden be pros from day one? Penix should be, but then there's that injury risk. So I'm just not going to count on either of these guys really doing anything as a rookie. So it's time to reveal if you think that someone has a chance to be this year's rookie QB1 that is not Caleb Williams, or in other words, who could this year's CJ Stroud be? Who is it?
I know I'm a Washington fan, and this is going to be like a homer pick, but I really think if I had to pick one outside of Caleb Williams, I've got to pick Jaden Daniels simply for that rushing upside. Like we saw Justin Fields when he finally got his chance to start as a rookie. Look what he did in the second half of the season, help people win fantasy championships. Yes, there's injury risk here, especially with Jaden Daniels because he's not that big, and like you said, he really took a lot of huge hits in college, and I am very concerned about that. But the Commanders have committed to him. He's going to play every single game, and like we saw with Anthony Richardson last year before he got hurt, if he stays healthy, he has a chance to have a huge season because of that rushing ability. So if I got to pick one, it's going to be Daniels.
I'm going to take a little different route here. I'm going to say I think it could be J.J. McCarthy because, again, that offensive system, those receivers, they'll basically do all the work for him. And we've seen so many guys that don't really belong in the starting lineup as a quarterback put up huge numbers, not just good, but huge numbers. Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs, it doesn't matter. Just get it in the general vicinity of Justin Jefferson. He'll catch it. And I know I mentioned the lack of rushing upside. Well, CJ Stroud only ran for 167 yards last year, so you don't really need that. You know what? Less susceptible to those injuries. So I'll say if I had to bet on one guy, I think I'm going with McCarthy. Those are the rookie quarterbacks you need to know about for fantasy this year. What about wide receiver? Well, the only ones you really need to worry about in fantasy are these guys that we already talked about.